My parents gave my sister a luxury apartment. Brand new, city center, gym, 24-hour security, everything gleaming and ready. And then they turned to me and handed me photographs of a house with caved-in ceilings, shattered windows, grass growing wild and tall as a person, walls that looked like they had given up on themselves years ago. And they did it with a smile, like they were doing me a favor, like this was fair. My mother looked me directly in the eyes and said, "You're the smart one. You're capable. This suits you better." Those words didn't just sting, they split me open from the inside. Like something I had been quietly protecting my whole life just cracked in half. But I didn't say a word. I nodded. I said thank you. I swallowed every single thing I wanted to say, every question, every tear, every scream, and I pressed it all down so deep inside me that it stopped feeling like pain and started feeling like fuel. The first night in that house, it rained. Note outside. Inside. Water came through the ceiling in steady, cold drops. The heater was completely dead. Every step I took across that floor, the wood groaned and cried beneath my feet like it was warning me to leave. I sat in that darkness, soaking wet, surrounded by the smell of rot and old neglect, and I made a decision. Note the loud kind. Not the kind you announce to anyone, the quiet kind, the kind that lives in your chest and just starts burning. I was not going to collapse. I was not going to call them and beg. I was not going to give anyone the satisfaction of watching me fail inside the burden they had handed me so casually. So I worked. I worked 2 jobs, morning shifts and night shifts, and I came home exhausted every single day, and I kept working. I saved every dollar with a discipline that left no room for anything else. Weekends that other people spent resting, I spent on my knees watching tutorials on a cracked phone screen, learning things I had never touched in my life. I borrowed tools from neighbors I barely knew. I climbed onto that roof myself and fixed it piece by piece, section by section in the cold with bleeding hands. I resealed every wall. I ripped out the rote. I scrubbed decades of filth until the surfaces underneath started remembering what they used to be. I tore out the collapsed porch completely and built a sunroom in its place. Small, warm, flooded with the kind of afternoon light that makes a space feel alive. Every crack I filled, every surface I sanded, every fixture I replaced. I did it alone, in silence, with no one watching and no one cheering. And slowly, over months that felt like years, that wreck of a house began to breathe again. The walls stood straight. The floors held firm. The light came in clean. It stopped being a ruin. It became a home, my home, something I had built with my own hands from nothing, from less than nothing, from the thing my own family had used as a throwaway. Then my parents called and said they wanted to visit. My mother walked through the front door and stopped moving. I watched it happen in real time, her eyes drifting across the walls I had repainted, the floors I had refinished, the sunroom glowing at the end of the hall. The details that only exist because I had refused to quit on 100 different nights when quitting would have been so easy. I watched her face move through surprise, through something that almost looked like guilt, and then land hard on calculation. She turned to me and said, without hesitation, without apology, "We're taking this house back. It belongs to Amelia now. You have 48 hours to leave." I stood there and waited. I genuinely waited for her to tell me she was joking. She wasn't joking. My father didn't say anything. He just stood there, and Amelia was already outside talking about where her sofa would go. Here is what none of them ever thought to do, what none of them considered even for a single moment. Read the paperwork. When my parents had handed me the documents a year earlier, I had read every page, every clause, every footnote, and what I found was this. The land had never been legally transferred back into their name after a prior transaction. It was still mine on paper. And beyond that, the zoning on that property was something rare. A decades-old commercial residential overlap, grandfathered in through a loophole that most people would walk right past without seeing. But a development company hadn't walked past it. They had been watching that land for years. 3 months before my mother stood in my kitchen and told me to get out, I had signed a conditional sale agreement with that company. The funds were already secured in escrow. The deal was already done. So when she said we're taking it back, I walked to the counter and placed 3 documents down in front of them. The deed, the zoning certificate, the signed agreement. My father picked up the papers and his hands started shaking before he finished the first page. My mother read in silence, her face getting harder and colder with every line. Then I told them the number, the sale price. What that broken, condemned, worthless house, the one they had handed me like a joke, was worth to the people who understood what they were actually looking at. My mother's legs almost went out from under her. The number was more than Amelia's apartment. Significantly more. More than they had ever once imagined investing in me, believing in me, or thinking I deserved. They tried everything after that. My father raised his voice. My mother cried. They made promises about what they would do differently, how things would change, how family has to stick together. Amelia stood in the hallway looking at her boxes and said nothing. It was over. It had been over the moment I signed that agreement. The sale closed without drama. The boxes went back onto the truck, and I stood in that doorway for the last time, not crying, not angry, not performing strength for anyone, just standing there with the absolute stillness of someone who knows exactly what she built and exactly what it cost her to build it. They thought they were handing me a burden the day they gave me that broken house. They thought they were settling a debt with the daughter they had already quietly written off. But what they actually did, without knowing it, without meaning to, was hand me the one thing I needed most. A place where no one was watching. A place where I could fail and get back up and fail again without an audience. A place that asked everything of me and gave me back something they never could, the knowledge that I was capable of far more than any of them ever thought to believe. The girl they didn't bet on took their throwaway and turned it into the wind that left them speechless. And if they had only treated me the way they treated her, I wonder sometimes if I ever would have found out just how much I was worth. My parents gave my sister a luxury apartment and handed me a condemned house. And the day they did that was the best thing that ever happened to me.